Have you ever stopped to wonder why we light candles on birthdays, or why certain phrases are repeated in weddings across cultures? These aren't just random acts, they're echoes of ancient rituals, threads woven into the fabric of human history. Picture this: a fire crackling in a prehistoric cave, shadows dancing as early humans chant in unison. Fast forward to today, and you'll find the same primal need for connection, the same longing to mark life's milestones with meaning. Rituals are more than just traditions, they're time capsules carrying secrets from one generation to the next. But how did these practices begin, and why do they hold such power over us? Take a moment to imagine standing in the heart of an Egyptian temple, watching priests perform rites unchanged for millennia. The air hums with incense, the walls whisper with hieroglyphs, every gesture, every word, a carefully preserved link to the divine. Now think of your own life, the morning routines, the holiday gatherings, even the way you celebrate small victories. These are modern rituals, stripped of their sacred robes but still pulsing with the same ancient heartbeat. What if I told you that the coffee you sip mindlessly each morning shares DNA with offerings poured to gods, that the handshake you exchange at a business meeting traces back to tribal gestures of trust? Rituals are everywhere, hiding in plain sight, and their evolution tells a story far richer than we realize. This journey won't just uncover forgotten ceremonies. It'll reveal how rituals shaped empires, sparked revolutions, and quietly sculpted the modern world. We'll explore why some rituals vanish while others endure, how they adapt to survive, and what they reveal about our deepest fears and desires. From the haunting echoes of Viking funerals to the silent precision of Japanese tea ceremonies, each practice holds a clue to humanity's unspoken language. So let's step through the doorway of time together, because understanding rituals isn't just about the past. It's about decoding the invisible forces that still guide us today. The secrets are waiting. All we have to do is listen. What transforms a simple action into something sacred? The difference between a ritual and a mundane habit lies in three powerful ingredients: intention, symbolism, and repetition. Think of the way we blow out birthday candles. It's not just about extinguishing flames. That moment carries weight because we infuse it with wishes, with hope, with the unspoken belief that this small act might shape our future. That's intention. Now consider the wedding ring. A circle of metal becomes a lifelong promise, a physical echo of love's endless cycle. That's symbolism. And repetition. That's why we gather for Thanksgiving year after year, why athletes tap their shoes twice before a game. These patterns etch meaning into our bones until the act itself feels necessary, like breathing. Anthropologists have found that rituals act as invisible anchors, tethering communities across time. When Japanese families sweep ancestral graves during Obon, they're not just cleaning stone. They're speaking to generations long gone, reaffirming that the departed still belong. In Bali, daily offerings of rice and flowers aren't merely decorative. They're conversations with the divine, a way to maintain balance between seen and unseen worlds. Even secular rituals like singing a national anthem or tossing graduation caps create what sociologists call collective effervescence, that electric feeling of belonging to something larger than ourselves. But here's where it gets fascinating. Rituals aren't frozen in time. They evolve, adapting to survive. The ancient Roman libation, where wine was poured to honor gods, mirrors our modern toast at celebrations. The Viking tradition of passing a drinking horn around a fire finds its echo in friends sharing a bottle today. These acts persist because they answer a deep human hunger for connection, for meaning, for a way to mark what matters. So next time you tie your shoes a certain way or kiss a loved one goodbye with the same phrase each morning, recognize that you're not just following routine. You're continuing a chain that stretches back further than memory, adding your link to an unbroken story. Deep in the shadows of prehistoric caves, where firelight flickered against rough stone walls, humanity's first rituals took shape. These weren't the elaborate ceremonies we know today, but raw, visceral acts born from necessity and awe. Picture a group of early humans gathered around the remains of a mammoth, their hands stained with ochre as they trace symbols onto the cave walls. This wasn't mere decoration, it was a sacred dialogue with forces beyond their understanding. Archaeologists have found caves like Lascaux in France, where paintings dating back 17,000 years show animals pierced with spears, their outlines repeated like incantations. These weren't just records of hunts, they were attempts to wield power over the unknown to ensure survival through symbolic magic. Burial sites tell an equally profound story. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, Neanderthals laid their dead to rest over 50,000 years ago, surrounding them with flowers and tools. This wasn't disposal, it was reverence, a recognition that life held meaning beyond mere existence. The positioning of bones, the presence of grave goods, even the traces of feasts near burial sites all whisper the same truth. Rituals gave early humans a way to confront mortality, to bridge the gap between the living and the gone. Then there are the Venus figurines, small, exaggerated carvings of female forms found across Europe, some dating back 35,000 years. These weren't idol sculptures but likely talismans for fertility, held during rituals pleading for the continuation of life. Imagine the desperation and hope woven into those rituals, the prayers for healthy children, for plentiful game, for the survival of the tribe. What's striking isn't just the universality of these practices, but their emotional resonance today. When modern hunters whisper thanks to their prey, or when we lay flowers on graves, we're echoing those primal impulses. Early rituals weren't about control, they were about connection. Connection to the natural world, to ancestors, to the mysteries that lurked beyond the firelight. They reveal a fundamental human truth. We've always sought patterns in chaos, meaning in the mundane. These ancient practices also show how rituals evolve. A prehistoric hunting dance might have involved stomping feet and chanted rhythms to summon courage before the hunt. Fast forward millennia, and you'll find echoes in the synchronized chants of soldiers before battle or the pre-game huddles of athletes. The forms change, but the heartbeat remains, the need to unite, to prepare, to transcend fear through shared action. Perhaps the most enduring lesson lies in what these rituals didn't do. They didn't promise certainty. A cave painter couldn't guarantee the hunt would succeed. A Neanderthal mourner couldn't bring back the dead. Yet they persisted because rituals weren't about outcomes, they were about the act itself. The defiant insistence that even in a chaotic world, humans could create moments of meaning. That's why, after all these millennia, we still light candles, still raise our voices in song, still gather in circles. The tools have changed, but the longing remains, to touch something greater than ourselves. The pyramids still stand as silent witnesses to a civilization obsessed with eternity. For the ancient Egyptians, death wasn't an end, it was a meticulously planned journey, and every ritual served as a roadmap to immortality. Picture the embalmer's workshop, the scent of natron salt thick in the air, priests chanting spells as they wrap linen around a body with surgical precision. Mummification wasn't just preservation, it was an act of cosmic recycling. By removing organs and placing them in canopic jars guarded by gods, they believed they were reassembling the body for its next life, piece by sacred piece. Then came the Book of the Dead, not a single text, but a customized guidebook for navigating the afterlife. Imagine a wealthy noble clutching their papyrus scroll, studying spells to outwit demons and pass the ultimate test, the weighing of the heart against the feather of mad. This ritual wasn't mere superstition. It reflected a profound philosophy that morality had weight, literally. A heart heavy with misdeeds would tip the scales, condemning the soul to oblivion. But a life in balance that earned passage to the field of reeds where eternity mirrored the Nile's fertile banks. Temple rituals were equally intricate. Every dawn, priests washed statues of gods, dressed them in linen, and offered meals not because deities needed food, but to maintain the delicate equilibrium between heaven and earth. When a priest whispered, "I have not stolen bread from the mouths of the gods," he wasn't just reciting lines, he was oiling the gears of the universe. The ripple effects of these practices stretch further than you might think. Greek travelers like Herodotus marveled at Egyptian rites, carrying ideas home that would later weave into Hellenistic mystery cults. The Roman cult of Isis borrowed heavily from Egyptian funeral rites, repackaging them for Mediterranean audiences. Even modern funeral traditions placing flowers on graves, preserving keepsakes hold faint echoes of that ancient belief that how we treat the dead shapes their journey beyond. But here's the twist. While we often focus on the grandeur of pharaohs' tombs, it's the humble offerings that reveal the most loaves of bread molded from clay, tiny Ushabti figurines meant to serve the deceased in the afterlife. These weren't just for elites. Farmers pooled resources to buy simple coffins, proving immortality wasn't a privilege but a universal aspiration. That's the true legacy of Egyptian rituals. They democratized eternity, offering even the humblest laborer a shot at forever. The genius of their system lay in its adaptability. When foreign rulers like the Persians or Greeks took over, Egyptian priests didn't discard old rites, they layered new meanings onto them. The god Serapis, a fusion of Osiris and Greek deities, became a bridge between cultures. This flexibility hints at why certain rituals endure while others fade. The ones that survive aren't rigid but resilient, able to absorb new contexts without losing their core power. So next time you see someone light a candle in memory or place mementos on a grave, remember, you're glimpsing a thread that stretches back to Thebes and Memphis. The vessels have changed, but the voyage remains the same. A human yearning to reach beyond the horizon of mortality, one ritual at a time. Mesopotamia's ziggurats rose like stairways to heaven, their baked brick steps crawling with priests bearing offerings of barley beer and roasted mutton. In this world, rituals weren't just traditions, they were legally binding agreements with the divine. Every incantation carved into clay tablets, every drop of oil poured into a shrine, functioned like a cosmic contract, sealing pacts between heaven and earth. Take the famous Sherpu rituals, where priests burned specific herbs while reciting spells to undo curses. These weren't symbolic gestures, they were spiritual lawsuits, meticulously documented appeals to the gods for justice. The Epic of Gilgamesh gives us a haunting glimpse into this mindset. When Enkidu falls ill, Gilgamesh doesn't merely mourn, he bargains. He offers sacrifices, builds monuments, and even seeks the secret of immortality, all to rewrite the terms of his friend's fate. This wasn't fantasy to the Mesopotamians, it was protocol. Their entire pantheon operated like a celestial bureaucracy, where rituals were the paperwork required to navigate life's uncertainties. Scribes played a surprising role in this system. In the tablet houses of Babylon, they didn't just copy texts, they preserved spells like a pharmacist stocks medicines. The Maklu series, 7 tablets of anti-witchcraft incantations, reads like a supernatural legal code. Each chant specifies which god to invoke, which offering to present. even the exact time of day to perform the rite. The precision is staggering. One tablet from Nineveh details how to cleanse a house using flour, water, and a recited prayer, proving that for the Mesopotamians, the spiritual and physical worlds were inseparably linked. Divination rituals reveal even more about this contractual mindset. When a king sought guidance, priests would examine sheep livers like celestial blueprints, interpreting blemishes as divine messages. The Enuma Anu Enlil tablets catalogued omens from eclipses to bird flights, turning the unpredictable into a readable language. Imagine the comfort in that, a universe where even chaos followed rules, where every disaster could be mitigated with the right ritual response. What's remarkable isn't just the complexity of these practices, but their endurance. Centuries later, elements of Mesopotamian rites resurfaced in Jewish exorcisms, Greek oracle traditions, even medieval grimoires. The Asipu, or Mesopotamian exorcist, might seem worlds apart from a modern priest or therapist, yet they shared the same goal: restoring order through prescribed actions. That's the true power of ritual. It transforms helplessness into agency, chaos into procedure. The clay tablets left behind aren't just relics, they're mirrors. When we check horoscopes or knock on wood, we're channeling that same ancient urge to negotiate with the unseen. The gods have changed names, the offerings have modernized, but the fundamental deal remains. Humans still seek terms with the universe, one ritual at a time. Flames crackled in the pre-dawn darkness as priests gathered around an altar of stacked bricks, their voices rising in precise Sanskrit chants. This was no ordinary fire, it was a yajna, the sacred Vedic ritual where every flicker of flame carried prayers to the gods. Imagine the scene: clarified butter dripping onto hot coals, sending plumes of fragrant smoke skyward, while verses from the Rigveda, some over 3,000 years old, vibrated through the air. These weren't just words. The priests believed sound itself had power to rearrange reality. When they chanted Agni, the god of fire, they weren't calling from afar. They were summoning divinity into the flames, transforming the pyre into a cosmic switchboard connecting earth and heaven. What made these rituals extraordinary was their mathematical precision. Every aspect, the number of bricks in the altar, the syllables in each mantra, even the angle of the priest's hand when pouring ghee, followed strict geometric and rhythmic rules. The fire altar's shape mirrored the universe, square for earth, circle for sky, with the flames bridging the two. This wasn't poetry, it was sacred engineering, where getting the formula right meant maintaining Artie, the cosmic order. A single mispronounced syllable could supposedly derail the ritual's effects, like a misplaced digit collapsing an equation. Over centuries, these fire ceremonies evolved in fascinating ways. The grand public yajnas of kings like the Ashvamedha, where a horse was sacrificed to claim territory, gave way to more personal household rites. The fire itself took on new roles. In Zoroastrian traditions that split from Vedic roots, the eternal flame became a direct embodiment of divine wisdom. Even the materials adapted. Where ancient priests used rare woods like sandalwood, modern practitioners might offer rice or coconut, proving rituals survive by bending without breaking. Perhaps the most enduring legacy lies in how these fire rituals democratized spirituality. The Upanishads, later Vedic texts, shifted focus from external ceremonies to internal meditation, suggesting the true fire altar was within the human heart. Today, when a Hindu bride and groom circle a sacred fire during weddings, or when a monk lights a butter lamp in Tibet, they're tapping into that same ancient understanding. That fire doesn't just destroy, it transforms, purifies, and carries human hopes upward like smoke toward the stars. The genius of Vedic rituals wasn't their rigidity, but their resilience. They absorbed influences from Buddhist philosophies to colonial encounters, yet retained their core purpose: to align human actions with cosmic rhythms. Modern physicists might smile at the idea of sound shaping reality, but consider this: the Higgs boson particle was discovered using equations not so different from the Vedic concept of vibration creating form. Whether through science or spirituality, humans keep returning to the same revelation, that invisible patterns underlie everything, and sometimes all it takes is a flame and a chant to make them visible. The scent of bay leaves and burning barley filled the sacred valley at Delphi as a line of petitioners climbed the winding path to the temple. Among them stood kings and peasants alike, all awaiting their turn to hear the Pythia, the priestess whose cryptic utterings, inhaled with the fumes rising from the earth's cracks, would shape battles, marriages, and the fates of cities. This wasn't superstition. It was the nerve center of Greek spirituality, where rituals transformed uncertainty into action. The oracle didn't just predict the future, she framed it, her words woven into decisions that echoed across the Mediterranean world. But Delphi was just one thread in a vast tapestry of Greek ritual. In the shadowed halls of Eleusis, initiates experienced the mysteries, a secret rite promising rebirth through the myth of Persephone's descent into the underworld. Participants drank kykeon, a barley potion rumored to induce visions, and emerged claiming to know the end of life and its God-given beginning. Unlike public sacrifices, these rites thrived on exclusivity. The penalty for revealing their secrets was death, yet for over 1,000 years, not a single initiate broke their oath. What power did these ceremonies hold that could command such loyalty? Historians suggest it wasn't just fear but the raw, transformative experience, an ancient precursor to psychotherapy, using ritual to confront mortality and emerge unshaken. Rome took Greek spirituality and weaponized it for empire. Where Greek rituals often sought personal enlightenment, Roman state religion was a meticulously choreographed machine. The College of Pontiffs functioned like divine accountants, recording every omen and prescribing exact rituals to maintain the Pax Deorum, the peace of the gods. When lightning struck, senators didn't debate philosophy. They consulted the Libri Fulgarals, a manual detailing which expiatory rites to perform based on the strike's location and time. Augurs, Rome's official diviners, didn't merely read bird flights, they shaped history. Before crossing the Rubicon, Julius Caesar reportedly ignored an augur's warning, turning a ritual into a revolution. The genius of Roman statecraft lay in ritual assimilation. Conquered gods weren't erased, they were invited into the pantheon like diplomatic envoys. The Magna Mater, a Phrygian goddess, was imported during the Punic Wars with a full ceremonial parade. Her exotic priests tolerated as long as they didn't disrupt public order. Even Christianity's eventual triumph came through ritual compromise. December 25th, once the birthday of Sol Invictus, became Christ's nativity, blending old and new. These traditions didn't vanish with the toga. Modern courts still use Roman-derived oaths, military parades echo triumphal processions. The Olympic torch relay, though conceived in the 20th century, borrows the Greek reverence for sacred fire. And when politicians swear oaths on Bibles or constitutions, they're channeling the same principle that once made Roman senators sacrifice white bulls before battle. That rituals aren't just symbols, but the glue binding society to its highest ideals. The true legacy of Greco-Roman rites lies in their duality. They were both deeply personal and ruthlessly political, offering spiritual solace while reinforcing social hierarchies. A Roman general consulting the Sibylline books and a Greek widow placing coins on her husband's eyes shared the same conviction. that rituals are the tools with which humans carve meaning from the marble of existence. Today, whether we light votive candles or stand for national anthems, we're still speaking their language, one of symbols, order, and the unyielding belief that some acts must be performed not because they change the world, but because they change us. Mist clung to the oak branches as Druid priests gathered in a grove older than memory, their white robes brushing against sacred mistletoe. Unlike the pyramid builders or temple scribes, the Celts left no stone libraries. Their rituals lived in whispers between trees, in the turn of seasons, in the silent language of standing stones. Archaeologists find traces of their world in bog offerings, swords bent deliberately, cauldrons placed in water, treasures given back to the earth as if paying a debt to the unseen. These weren't sacrifices in the traditional sense, but exchanges, a recognition that humans weren't nature's masters, but participants in a vast, living dialogue. The solstice alignments at Newgrange reveal their precision. Long before modern astronomy, someone designed this Irish tomb so that once a year, at dawn on the winter solstice, sunlight would pierce its dark passage like a golden spear. Imagine the ceremony, the hushed anticipation as priests and villagers waited in that cold tunnel, watching for the moment when the sun proved the world would turn again. This wasn't just marking time, it was a ritual contract with the cosmos, a promise that light would return even in the deepest dark. Ogam carvings on weathered stones hint at their layered symbolism. Each mark corresponded to a tree: birch for new beginnings, oak for strength, yew for the threshold between life and death. When Druids read the forest, they weren't just identifying plants, they were deciphering a living text. A modern hiker might see a hawthorn thicket as mere undergrowth, but to the Celts, its tangled branches marked a doorway to the otherworld, a place so potent that folklore warned against disturbing fairy thorn trees even centuries later. Their rituals thrived on paradox. Sacred fires burned at Beltane to purify and protect, yet cattle were driven between the flames, a reminder that protection sometimes requires risk. The cauldron of Ceridwen, Welsh goddess of transformation, wasn't just a cooking pot but a metaphor for the cyclical nature of existence, destruction and renewal simmering together. Even their most fearsome practices, like the Wicker Man described by Roman historians, may have been less about brutality than symbolic surrender, offering the harvest's essence back to the land that provided it. What survived the Roman conquest and Christian conversion wasn't just superstition, but a worldview. The well-dressing ceremonies of Derbyshire, where villagers decorate springs with flower petals, mirror ancient water veneration. Halloween's jack-o'-lanterns evolved from turnips carved to ward off spirits during Samhain, when the Celts believed the veil between worlds grew thin. And when modern pagans gather at Stonehenge for the solstice, they're tapping into something far older than New Age trends: a primal urge to align human rhythms with the Earth's heartbeat. The Druids' true secret wasn't magic but perception. They didn't dominate nature, they listened to it. A rustle in the leaves became an omen, a bird's flight path a message. In an age of climate crisis, their most radical lesson might be this: rituals aren't just human inventions, but responses, ways to remember that every act, from kindling a fire to planting a seed, is part of an older, deeper conversation we're all born into. The rhythmic pulse of a reindeer-hide drum echoes across the frozen tundra, its steady beat guiding a Siberian shaman's journey upward through the world tree. Meanwhile, deep in the Amazon, the bitter taste of ayahuasca tea floods a healer's senses as visions of jaguars and serpentine rivers unfold behind closed eyelids. Though separated by continents, these rituals share an uncanny resemblance, not by coincidence, but because shamanism represents humanity's oldest spiritual operating system, a universal language written in trance, ecstasy, and sacred plants. At its core, shamanism operates on a radical premise: that reality has layers invisible to ordinary sight, and certain individuals can navigate these realms through ritual. The Evenki people of Siberia describe it as kamlani, a ceremony where the shaman's soul leaves their body to bargain with spirits for healing or knowledge. Their costume, studded with iron pendants representing bones, isn't just ceremonial armor, it's a spiritual interface, each piece aiding their journey. Similarly, Shipibo healers in Peru sing intricate icaros during ayahuasca ceremonies, their melodies acting as sonic maps through the spirit world. What modern science might dismiss as hallucination, these traditions treat as legitimate exploration, a kind of interdimensional diplomacy where illness stems from spiritual imbalance and healing requires crossing thresholds. The tools of this trade reveal surprising commonalities across cultures, from the Sami Nowidi drums of Scandinavia to the Navajo chantways of the American Southwest. Percussion serves as a universal vehicle, the steady rhythm altering brainwave patterns to induce trance states. Contemporary researchers have measured these effects, noting how drumming at 4 to 7 beats per second synchronizes with theta brain waves, the same frequencies dominant during REM sleep and deep meditation. Even the spiral motifs painted on many shamanic drums recur globally, perhaps representing the labyrinthine path between worlds. Plant allies form another shared lexicon. The fly agaric mushroom of Siberian rites, the peyote cactus central to Native American church ceremonies, even the common tobacco used as a sacred offering, all contain compounds that interact with human neurochemistry. But here's the crucial distinction: indigenous practitioners don't view these as mere drugs but as plant teachers. A Yanomami shaman doesn't take Yopo snuff to escape reality, but to enter a more fundamental one, where illness manifests as visible spiritual blockages. Modern psychotherapy is just beginning to catch up, with studies on psilocybin-assisted therapy showing remarkable parallels to traditional healing frameworks. What explains the persistence of these ancient practices in the 21st century? Partly, it's their adaptability. In Mongolia, urbanized youth now attend spiritual concerts where throat singing and horsehead fiddles create shamanic-like experiences without strict ritual frameworks. The Biwiti tradition of Gabon, which uses the root bark iboga for initiation rites, has gained global followers seeking addiction treatment outside clinical settings. Even the digital age hasn't diminished the allure. YouTube hosts countless videos of shamans performing distance healing, adapting millennia-old techniques to Wi-Fi wavelengths. Perhaps the deepest lesson lies in shamanism's view of interconnectedness. Where Western medicine often treats symptoms in isolation, a shaman sees a sick person as someone out of sync with their community, their environment, even their own dreams. The healing rituals, whether involving smoke cleansing, soul retrieval, or spirit marriages, aim to restore harmony across all these relationships. In an era of climate crisis and social fragmentation, that holistic approach may explain why these primordial practices still resonate. They remind us that every ritual, from drumming in a yurt to singing over ayahuasca, is ultimately about remembering our place in a living, breathing web of existence. A knife glints in the desert sun as a mohel prepares to perform the oldest continuously practiced religious ritual on earth. Jewish circumcision, or Brit Milah, dates back over 3,000 years to Abraham's covenant with God, a physical mark signifying an eternal spiritual bond. Yet this same ritual takes on startlingly different meanings across cultures. In Ethiopia, Beta Israel communities incorporate elements of local traditions, singing unique psalms during the ceremony. Meanwhile, Muslim Aqiqah ceremonies often pair circumcision with shaving the newborn's head, and giving silver equal to the hair's weight to charity, blending prophetic tradition with social responsibility. What begins as a single act of faith branches into countless variations, each adapting to its time and place while preserving core symbolism. Water rituals reveal even richer evolution. John the Baptist's immersion of repentant Jews in the Jordan River wasn't just about cleansing. It was a radical democratization of temple purity laws, making sacredness accessible outside priestly hierarchies. Early Christian baptism retained this subversive edge, with initiates stripping naked to be reborn in communal fonts, often facing persecution for their defiance of Roman state religion. Fast forward to medieval Europe, and that same ritual became politicized, with kings baptized as infants to cement alliances between church and crown. Today, a Baptist's full-body immersion, a Catholic's forehead anointing, and a Quaker's silent dedication service all claim descent from those Jordan River dunkings, proving how one ritual can stretch to encompass theological chasms. Pilgrimage transforms bodies into living prayers. The Hajj circling of the Kaaba echoes pre-Islamic Arabian rites, Islamicized by Muhammad into a monotheistic reenactment of Abraham's trials. Jewish pilgrims ascending Jerusalem's Temple Mount once followed similar circuits before the Second Temple's destruction. Their ritual walks preserved today in the 7 Hakafat processions with Torah scrolls during Simchat Torah. Even Christian pilgrimages to Santiago de Compostela quietly absorbed pagan path-marking traditions. The iconic scallop shell badges medieval travelers wore may trace back to Venus worship along those same routes. The genius of these rituals lies in their layered meanings. Passover Seders aren't just historical reenactments. During the Roman era, they became covert discussions of liberation from contemporary oppression. Communion wafers, simple to outsiders, embody centuries of theological debate about substance and symbol. When Muslim families sacrifice sheep for Eid al-Adha, they're not merely commemorating Abraham's test, they're feeding the poor, turning ritual into social glue. Modern innovations show these traditions aren't frozen. LGBTQ+ Jews have created alternative Brit ceremonies celebrating gender diversity. Virtual Hajj experiences now allow the infirm to participate remotely. Some churches use glow sticks during Easter vigils, transforming ancient light rituals for digital natives. Through war, diaspora, and technological upheaval, these rituals endure because they're not relics. They're living conversations between the divine and the human, constantly rewriting themselves in the language of each new generation. A single drop of water falls into a stone basin, the sound rippling through silence like a whispered secret. This is the opening gesture of a Japanese tea ceremony, but its roots stretch back to Taoist monks who saw in such simplicity the essence of harmony. The ritual isn't about drinking tea, it's about presence. Every movement, from the folding of the linen cloth to the deliberate rotation of the bowl, becomes meditation in motion. Taoist philosophy calls this Wu Wei, the art of effortless action, where ritual transcends rote repetition and becomes a dance with the present moment. Modern mindfulness apps might promise calm in 10 minutes a day, but these ancient practices suggest something radical. That mindfulness isn't an activity, but a way of inhabiting every breath. Buddhist rituals take this further, transforming even the most mundane acts into sacred theater. In Zen monasteries, monks eat their meals in precise silence, arranging bowls like mandalas before lifting chopsticks in unison. The ritual isn't just about nourishment, it's a training ground for awareness, where peeling a potato or sweeping a floor can become portals to enlightenment. Tibetan Buddhists take this ethos into the spectacular, crafting intricate sand mandalas only to destroy them upon completion, a visceral reminder of impermanence. The brilliance lies in the paradox. By meticulously creating something destined to vanish, they ritualize the very transience that causes human suffering. Confucian ancestor veneration offers a different lesson that rituals bind time itself. In Korean Seongmyo ceremonies, families trek to mountain graves to clear weeds, pour wine libations, and bow deeply before stone markers. These aren't acts of worship in the Western sense, but threads connecting generations. The ritual reaffirms that the departed remain part of the family system, their influence continuing through memory and respect. Modern psychology echoes this intuitively. Studies show grief rituals, whether lighting candles or setting places at holiday tables, help regulate loss by providing structure for amorphous pain. The tea master Sen no Rikyu once said, "The way of tea is naught but boiling water, making tea and sipping it." Yet in that simplicity lies a blueprint for modern life. Silicon Valley executives now study Chanoyu to learn decision-making presence. Danish, Hig, traditions, and Italian, Dolce far niente, both channel this Eastern ethos, that rituals shouldn't separate sacred from ordinary, but reveal the extraordinary hidden in daily routines. A corporate worker pausing to breathe before a meeting, a parent setting phones aside during family dinners, these micro-rituals all draw from the same well. Perhaps the most urgent lesson comes from how these traditions adapt without breaking. Taiwanese Buddhists live-stream sutra recitations. Japanese priests offer digital omamori charms for smartphones. The forms evolve, but the core remains, that rituals are neither shackles nor superstitions, but tools for remembering who we are. In a world of constant distraction, they offer what no algorithm can, a way to touch the timeless, one deliberate gesture at a time. A crucible glows red-hot in a shadowed workshop as the alchemist murmurs incantations over bubbling mercury. To outsiders, this scene might look like mere superstition, but medieval alchemy's rituals were anything but simple magic tricks. These were precise operations, each step laden with symbolic weight, where the transformation of base metals mirrored the refinement of the human soul. Take the famous Negrido stage, where substances blackened in decay. On one level, this represented Lead's purification. On another, it symbolized the practitioner's own confrontation with darkness, the necessary first step toward enlightenment. The tools themselves were sacred. An alembic wasn't just glassware, its twin chambers embodied the union of opposites, male and female principles merging to birth new forms. When alchemists wrote of the marriage of sun and moon, they weren't crafting poetry, they were documenting a cosmic blueprint they believed governed everything from chemical reactions to spiritual ascension. Even their obsessive secrecy, encoding recipes with dragon imagery or celestial metaphors, served a ritual purpose. By veiling knowledge in symbols, they ensured only the worthy could undertake the work, turning the decoding process itself into an initiatory test. Consider the legendary Emerald Tablets axiom, as above, so below. This wasn't mystical fluff but a working hypothesis. Alchemists saw the laboratory as a microcosm of the universe, where manipulating matter could influence celestial forces. When they distilled rosewater, they weren't just making perfume, they were capturing the essence of Venus, harnessing planetary energies. Modern chemistry owes these pioneers more than we acknowledge. Their meticulous record-keeping, experimental methods, and even equipment like water baths laid foundations for the scientific revolution. Yet the most fascinating rituals occurred beyond the lab. Many alchemical texts describe meditative visions preceding breakthroughs, suggesting the real prima materia wasn't physical substance but consciousness itself. The Zurich physician Paracelsus spoke of astral bodies influencing health centuries before New Age trends. His rituals for creating spagyric medicines extracting plant essences, then reintegrating their purified salts, mirrored his belief that healing required addressing body, spirit, and cosmic influences simultaneously. Today, we've inherited their legacy in unexpected ways. The 12-step recovery model echoes alchemy's transformative stages. Silicon Valley's obsession with disruption and reinvention channels the same yearning for radical change. Even our language preserves their imprint when we speak of chemistry between people or distilling ideas to their essence. We're unknowingly quoting these medieval ritualists. Their true philosopher's stone may have been the realization that transformation isn't just possible. It's the fundamental nature of existence, and every ritual, from stirring a potion to confronting one's shadows, is part of that endless alchemy. A single candle flickers in a dark chamber as a blindfolded initiate stands trembling between two pillars. This moment, repeated with slight variations from Paris to Philadelphia, marks the heart of Freemasonry's secret rites. But why go to such lengths for a ritual? The answer lies in theater's oldest power, to transform not just observers but participants. When 18th century Masons reenacted the legend of Hiram Abiff, the murdered master builder of Solomon's Temple, they weren't just putting on a play. They were engineering an experience so visceral, so charged with symbolism, that it would rewrite the initiate's understanding of loyalty, mortality, and their place in the cosmic order. The tools of these societies revealed deeper intentions. A compass and square weren't just carpenters' implements. They became emblems of moral geometry, teaching that human lives required both expansion and boundaries. The Rosicrucians took symbolism further, embedding alchemical imagery into their rituals. An initiate might be given a vial of philosopher's stone that was actually salt, teaching that enlightenment wasn't about magic powders but inner refinement. Even the infamous bloody oath, where candidates swore secrecy under penalty of gruesome punishments, served a psychological purpose. By simulating mortal peril, societies intensified the value of what came next, the revelation of hidden knowledge. Degrees functioned as spiritual stepping stones. Blue Lodge Freemasonry's 3 degrees entered apprentice, fellowcraft, master mason mirrored the medieval guild system but carried esoteric meanings. The winding staircase climb during the fellowcraft degree wasn't just architectural. Its 3, 5, and 7 steps represented the liberal arts, the orders of architecture, and the planetary spheres. Rosicrucian grades like Adeptus Minor borrowed from Kabbalistic traditions where each promotion brought access to deeper layers of symbolic language. These weren't arbitrary titles but a ladder of consciousness designed to elevate members gradually rather than overwhelm them. Handshakes and passwords seem quaint today, but in Enlightenment Europe they were revolutionary. In an age when birthright determined status, secret societies offered something radical, a meritocracy of the mind. The Masonic handshake, varying subtly by degree, created an instant hierarchy based on knowledge rather than nobility. When a stranger demonstrated the correct grip, it proved they'd undergone the same transformative rituals, forging bonds stronger than family ties. This explains why figures like Mozart and Benjamin Franklin cherished their lodges. Here, a composer could sit as equals with kings, united by shared symbols rather than divided by class. The greatest secret these societies guarded may have been their adaptability. Freemasonry absorbed elements from Templar legends, Egyptian mysteries, and even Cherokee council practices as it spread globally. The Bavarian Illuminati, often portrayed as sinister conspirators, actually used rituals to spread Enlightenment ideals. Their initiation rites included reading banned philosophy by candlelight. Even today, groups like the Ordo Templi Orientis blend Masonic structure with Aleister Crowley's esoteric teachings. proving that initiation rituals remain potent tools for transmitting unconventional ideas. Perhaps the ultimate irony is that their real power lay not in concealment but in selective revelation. The theatrics, the blindfolds, the allegorical deaths weren't about hiding truth but making it unforgettable. When an Egyptian Freemason undergoes initiation in Cairo today, or when a Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur joins a modern esoteric order, they're participating in the same ancient experiment, using ritual to turn abstract wisdom into lived experience. The lodges may have changed their decor, but the human need they answer to, the hunger for meaning wrapped in mystery, remains eternal. Steam rises from glowing stones as voices chant in the darkness of a sweat lodge, the air thick with sage and cedar. This isn't just a sauna, it's a womb of rebirth where participants emerge not just cleansed of toxins, but spiritually realigned with the natural world. For the Lakota, the Inipi ceremony mirrors the Earth's own cycles. The stones represent Grandmother Earth's bones, the water her lifeblood, the steam her breath. Every element is alive, every step a conversation. Similar rituals span the continent, the Navajo's blessing way, the Ojibwa's Midwuan rites, each uniquely tailored to their landscape, yet united by a core belief that humans aren't separate from nature, but threads in its vast web. Vision quests take this connection deeper. A young crow warrior climbs bare butt, fasting for days under open sky until exhaustion blurs the line between dream and reality. When an eagle circles overhead or a wolf appears at the edge of sight, these aren't chance encounters but messengers, offering guidance etched into the land itself. The Haudenosaunee call this listening to the mountains, a practice that shaped their great law of peace, a democratic constitution inspired by the interdependence of forest ecosystems. Modern ecologists now study these traditions, recognizing what indigenous peoples always knew, that sustainable living requires seeing the world as a network of reciprocal relationships, not resources to exploit. Then there's the sun dance, perhaps the most misunderstood ritual. To outsiders, the dancer's piercings might seem like mere endurance tests, but every detail holds meaning. The central tree, chosen with prayers and adorned with offerings, becomes the axis mundi, a bridge between earth and sky. Dancers' movements mimic the sun's path, their suffering a gift to renew the people's bond with creation. When the US government banned the ceremony in the 1880s, tribes risked imprisonment to keep it alive. Today, it's not just a cultural revival but a political act, asserting that indigenous wisdom has vital answers for an overheating planet. The brilliance of these ceremonies lies in their adaptability. The Northwest Coast's potlatch, once outlawed for redistributing wealth too equitably, now fuels language revitalization, digital recordings of elders' speeches played at feasts. The Hopi's water clan rituals, passed down through generations, inform modern legal battles to protect aquifers from mining. Even urban indigenous communities recreate sacred spaces, building medicine gardens on rooftops or hosting moon ceremonies in community centers. This resilience speaks to a radical truth. These aren't relics but living systems. When Standing Rock protesters erected prayer lodges against the Dakota Access Pipeline, they weren't just borrowing symbolism. They were enacting ancient protocols for protecting water, updated for pipeline battles. Climate scientists now collaborate with Inuit elders, merging satellite data with traditional knowledge of ice patterns. The lesson is clear. Rituals born from deep listening to the land might hold keys to saving it. So the next time you see a protester smudging with sage before a rally, or a community planting ritual gardens on reclaimed industrial land, recognize what's unfolding. These aren't just nods to tradition, they're the flowering of a worldview that remembers what modern society forgot, that rivers are relatives, not commodities. That true sustainability isn't about recycling bins, but relationships, and perhaps most importantly, that rituals aren't escapes from reality, but ways to reanimate our bond with a living, breathing world. The deep pulse of the Dundon drum cuts through the night as a Babalawo priest casts palm nuts onto a carved wooden tray, reading the patterns like a celestial map. In Yoruba tradition, this is Ifa divination, not fortune-telling, but a dialogue with Oran Miller, the Orisha of wisdom who remembers every human life ever lived. Each cast of the nuts reveals threads in a vast ancestral tapestry, connecting personal choices to generations past and future. Meanwhile, across the continent, Zulu youths smear white clay on their bodies during the Anga reed dance, their bare feet pounding the earth in unison. Though separated by thousands of miles, these rituals share a foundational truth. In African spirituality, no one walks alone. Masks transform this philosophy into living art. The Dan people of Liberia believe spirit beings called Glee inhabit carved masks during ceremonies, turning dancers into vessels for ancestral voices. A Sand Society mask isn't just worn, it becomes the embodiment of collective female wisdom, guiding initiates through puberty rites. Modern artists like Nigerian sculptor Lamidi Fakai preserved these traditions by carving new masks from single blocks of wood, proving that ritual objects can evolve while keeping their sacred purpose. Even diaspora adaptations like the beaded vives of Haitian Vodou demonstrate how African ritual language morphs without losing its grammar of community. Drumming patterns form another universal dialect. The talking drums of the Akan people don't merely keep rhythm, they mimic tonal languages, sending complex messages across villages. Researchers at the University of Ghana found certain rhythms activate brain regions associated with empathy, suggesting science may finally be catching up to what traditional healers always knew. Synchronized sound builds social cohesion. When Maasai warriors leap in the Adumu dance, their chants create a sonic lattice holding the community aloft. The lesson, unity isn't passive coexistence, it's a muscle exercised through shared ritual movement. Rites of passage reveal how these traditions sculpt identity. A Krobo girl's dazzling bead adornment during her Depot initiation does more than mark adulthood. Each bead carries stories of her lineage, literally weighting her with history as she steps into new responsibilities. Compare this to Western individualism, where coming of age often means breaking away. The ex-Hoses Abaquetha circumcision ritual, though controversial in modern contexts, originally functioned as an intensive school where initiates learned communal values through isolation and symbolic death. Anthropologists note these rites create what they call social skin, an invisible layer of belonging that outlasts biological changes. The most radical innovation lies in how these traditions weather disruption. When enslaved Africans arrived in the Americas, they hid orishas behind Catholic saints, turning forced baptismal fonts into sites of clandestine spiritual resistance. Today, Brazilian candomblé ceremonies still honor Yoruba deities with Portuguese names, Oxalá masked as Jesus, Iemanjá as the Virgin Mary. In Johannesburg townships, sangomas now incorporate digital technology, conducting bone-throwing divinations via video call for diaspora clients. This adaptive genius reveals the core truth. African rituals aren't relics frozen in time, but living systems as responsive as the baobabs that anchor their sacred groves. What might the modern world learn from these ancient blueprints? Urban planners study how Dogon villages arrange homes in spiral patterns mirroring the cosmos, creating neighborhoods that feel inherently connected. Psychiatrists explore how Ghanaian family palavas, ritualized conflict resolution circles, could supplement therapy for trauma. Even corporate teams now experiment with Ashanti-style talking sticks to ensure equitable meetings. The greatest gift of these traditions isn't exotic spectacle, but their reminder that true progress doesn't mean leaving community behind. It means carrying each other forward, one ritual heartbeat at a time. Firecrackers shatter the stillness of midnight as families across Beijing huddle over steaming dumplings, their laughter mingling with the scent of gunpowder and ginger. This explosive welcome to Lunar New Year isn't just celebration, it's ritual warfare against time itself. The legend of Nyan, the beast who feared red and noise, lives on in every scarlet envelope and lion dance, but modern twists emerge. Digital red packets now zip through smartphones, while eco-friendly lanterns replace fire-hazard paper. In Seoul, Seollal rituals unfold with equal reverence but distinct flavor. Ancestral memorials involve bowing so deep foreheads touch mats, followed by raucous games of Yutnori played with sticks and strategy. What unites these variations is their shared heartbeat. Renewal isn't just about turning a calendar page, but reaffirming bonds that stretch backward and forward through generations. Diwali's brilliance reveals another facet of ritual adaptation. The ancient story of Rama's return to Ayodhya still justifies the festival's existence, but the way it's celebrated morphs with each diaspora. In Trinidad, steel drums accompany the lighting of dayas, their coconut oil flames flickering between Hindu, Muslim, and Christian neighbors. Silicon Valley engineers code apps to coordinate neighborhood rangoli competitions, transforming temporary sand art into augmented reality displays. Even the dangers evolve. Where once the concern was oil lamps tipping, now Delhi hospitals brace for asthma spikes from fireworks smog, prompting eco-conscious families to switch to LED light displays. Yet through all these shifts, the core ritual remains untouched, the lighting of lamps to proclaim that wisdom outshines ignorance, whether the darkness is literal or metaphorical. Then there's Obon, Japan's summer dance with the departed. Lanterns floating down rivers might seem like simple memorials, but their choreography holds layers of meaning. The circular Bon Odori dances mimic the wheeling of souls between worlds, their repetitive steps inducing a trance-like state where grief and joy intertwine. Modern innovations like drone-powered lanterns or online ancestor altars haven't diluted the ritual's power, they've extended its reach. In Brazilian immigrant communities, Obon merges with local festa juniana, creating hybrid ceremonies where paper lanterns bob alongside balloon arches. The genius lies in how these adaptations don't replace tradition but expand its vocabulary, proving rituals can stretch across oceans without snapping their spiritual threads. What explains this resilience? Perhaps because these festivals aren't museum pieces but living conversations. When Vietnamese families substitute store-bought bánh chưng for homemade versions during Tet due to busy schedules, they're not abandoning tradition, they're prioritizing the essence, shared meals over the form, labor-intensive preparation. Similarly, Delhi's smog-conscious Diwali or Osaka's digital Obon aren't surrenders to modernity but negotiations with it, ensuring rituals survive by meeting people where they actually live. The true magic lies in their dual nature. A Lunar New Year reunion dinner is both a family check-in and a reenactment of cosmic harmony. Diwali's lamps are simultaneously Instagram backdrops and Vedic symbols of inner light. Obon's dances entertain tourists while guiding ancestral spirits. These festivals master the alchemy of holding past and present in perfect tension, proving that the most enduring traditions aren't those that resist change, but those that harness it to keep their souls intact. Moonlight glistened on the waters of Louisiana's swamps as enslaved Africans gathered in secret clearings, their bodies swaying to rhythms forbidden by daylight. What plantation owners dismissed as primitive drumming was actually a coded rebellion, every beat, every chant preserving fragments of homelands and ocean away. This was Vodou in its rawest form, where West African deities like Damballa the serpent spirit donned new names to hide in plain sight, merging with Catholic saints to create a spiritual resistance movement. The same dance that entertained slaveholders by day became a conduit for ancestral messages by night, its circling steps mapping escape routes toward maroon communities. In Brazil, the stakes were even higher. Candomblé practitioners risked imprisonment by hiding oryx saws behind the faces of saints, turning forced church attendance into covert worship. A statue of Saint George slaying a dragon became Ogum, the warrior oryxa, his sword now a symbol of protection for runaway slaves. The ritual foods left at altars, acarajé bean cakes, palm oil stews, weren't just offerings but edible archives, preserving culinary traditions that authorities couldn't confiscate. Anthropologists later discovered these ceremonies did more than sustain culture. They forged underground networks. The same drums that called the gods also relayed warnings about slave patrols, their complex polyrhythms serving as an auditory telegraph system. North America's Plains tribes faced a different kind of erasure. As the U.S. government outlawed indigenous ceremonies and confined nations to reservations, the ghost dance emerged as a spiritual counterattack. Participants wore shirts painted with sacred symbols they believed could stop bullets. Their circling dances meant to summon a tidal wave of renewal that would wash away invaders. Though the massacre at Wounded Knee attempted to crush the movement, its essence survived in sun dances held under the pretext of 4th of July celebrations, where warriors pierced their skin not just for visions but to ritually stitch their people's resilience back together. The Caribbean told a similar story through carnival. What colonizers saw as colorful pageantry masked Yoruba Egungun masquerades and Kelenego war dances, their true meanings veiled behind sequins and satire. In Trinidad, the Canboulay riots saw stick fighters turning ritual combat into actual rebellion against British troops, their bamboo clashes echoing ancestral battle techniques. Even today, when Bahamian Junkanu dancers don towering headdresses at dawn, they're resurrecting a tradition born when enslaved people stole moments of freedom during Christmas holidays, transforming oppression into artistry. These rituals shared a secret weapon, ambiguity. A Haitian mambo waving a rosary might be reciting Catholic prayers or invoking Ezeli Dantor with carefully placed double meanings. The Navajo singers who performed harmless folk songs for anthropologists often embedded healing chants within them, preserving medicine knowledge under the guise of entertainment. This strategic duality allowed traditions to survive even when their practitioners were being watched, turning performance into preservation. Modern echoes of this resistance still resonate. The Black Lives Matter movement's use of libations pouring water for ancestors at protests directly channels Vodou's ritual remembrance. Maori activists perform haka at land rights demonstrations, their stomps shaking the earth as their ancestors' war cries once did. Even the subtle act of a First Nations elder quietly smudging with sage before testifying in court continues this legacy, asserting spiritual sovereignty in spaces designed to deny it. What made these rituals such powerful tools wasn't just their symbolism but their neuroscience. Studies show rhythmic group movements synchronize brain waves, reducing fear and enhancing collective resolve, a biological advantage for communities under siege. The very acts meant to erase cultures became their lifelines, proving that when language is banned and weapons confiscated, the body itself can become an archive of resistance, carrying memories in its muscles and hope in its rhythms. Florence's cathedral dome pierced the dawn sky as a young Leonardo da Vinci sketched its curves, not just as an architect but as a seeker decoding divine geometry. The Renaissance didn't just revive classical art, It turned creativity itself into a sacred act, where every brushstroke and equation became a ritual bridging earth and heaven. In Da Vinci's notebooks, precise anatomical studies shared pages with alchemical symbols, revealing a mind that saw no divide between science and spirit. His dissection of cadavers by candlelight wasn't mere research. It was a kind of reverse embalming, peeling back layers to uncover the soul's mechanical housing. When he designed flying machines based on bat wings, he wasn't just engineering. He was attempting to ritualize humanity's ascent toward the divine. This fusion of disciplines found its boldest expression in the secret societies threading through Europe's intellectual underground. The Medici family's Platonic Academy didn't just discuss philosophy. They staged elaborate initiations where scholars wore masks of ancient thinkers, channeling their wisdom through neo-pagan rites. Venetian glassblowers, guardians of alchemical secrets, encoded formulas into their chalices, knowing the right drink from the right vessel could transform not just metals but consciousness itself. Even Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceiling hid Kabbalistic references in its swirling figures, his scaffolding a kind of ascension ladder where art became prayer. The era's true innovation lay in its democratization of ritual. Where medieval rites required priestly intermediaries, Renaissance thinkers proclaimed every individual a temple. Marsilio Ficino's soul music prescribed melodies to align human vibrations with planetary spheres, could be performed by anyone with a lute and the right intentions. Botticelli's Primavera wasn't just a painting but a ritual object, its floral symbolism guiding viewers through stages of spiritual awakening. Even the printing press, often hailed for spreading knowledge, became a ritual tool. Esoteric texts once locked in monasteries now inked onto cheap paper, their secrets spilling into tavern debates and artisan workshops. Yet for all its forward gaze, this period clung to ancient threads. The infamous Voynich manuscript, with its unreadable script and cryptic herbology, suggests some rituals remained stubbornly opaque, their meanings evaporating outside initiated circles. Nostradamus wrapped prophecies in astrological rituals, casting horoscopes to shield his visions from church censors. In Prague, Emperor Rudolf Roman II court resembled a mythic crossroads, where Christian mystics, Jewish Kabbalists, and Arab astronomers traded rituals like currency, each seeking universal keys in the other's traditions. What made Renaissance rituals so enduring was their elasticity. A single rose could symbolize Christ's wounds to a monk, Venus's beauty to a poet, and alchemical transformation to a scientist, all interpretations valid, all truths partial. This fluidity birthed modern freethinking while seeding future conflicts, the same hermetic motto, as above, so below, that inspired Galileo's telescopes also fueled witch-trial paranoia. Perhaps that's the era's lasting lesson, that rituals don't just reflect belief systems, but actively shape them for better or worse. When we visit a museum today, we're unknowingly participating in their greatest ritual of all, the consecration of human curiosity as the highest form of worship. The clang of factory bells shattered centuries-old rhythms, replacing village church chimes with the precise tyranny of the punch clock. As smokestacks towered over former farmland, the Industrial Revolution didn't just change how people worked, it rewrote the very language of communal bonding. Gone were harvest festivals tied to moon cycles. In their place, workers clung to new rituals forged in soot and solidarity. Picture a Lancashire textile mill at dawn, hundreds of hands synchronizing their motions to the loom's relentless beat, their shared exhaustion birthing an unexpected kinship. These weren't peasants bound by tradition, but strangers united by struggle, inventing rites to humanize the machine age. Labor movements turned protest into ceremony. The folded arms of a strike line mirrored ancient circle dances, their power lying not in movement but in collective stillness. May Day rallies transformed pagan spring rites into workers' theater, red banners waving like modern totems, speeches from makeshift pulpits giving secular sermons. Even the humble union card took on sacred significance, stamped and signed like a votive offering to the cause. When Welsh miners sang as they descended pit shafts, their harmonies weren't mere entertainment, they were sonic lifelines, measuring oxygen levels by echo while weaving an auditory safety net of shared breath and rhythm. Cities birthed their own liturgies of belonging. The London pubs, Lock In, where regulars stayed past closing for illicit drinks, became a secular communion, bartenders playing priest to their congregation of factory hands and clerks. New York's tenement stoops hosted nightly stoop sitting, immigrant grandmothers sharing stories that blended Sicilian folklore with Brooklyn slang, their rocking chairs marking time like metronomes between worlds. Parisian factory girls repurposed lace-making patterns into secret codes stitched onto handkerchiefs, turning domestic crafts into silent solidarity networks. Secular holidays emerged to fill spiritual voids. America's Thanksgiving, once a regional harvest meal, was reinvented as a national ritual of unity after the Civil War, its menu standardized by railroad companies shipping frozen turkeys coast to coast. The Japanese emperor's birthday became a day of forced public reverence, school children bowing to portraits in ceremonies blending Shinto pageantry with modern nationalism. Even department stores created rituals. Christmas window displays turned shopping into pilgrimage, their electric-lit nativity scenes replacing church creches with consumerist wonder. The true genius of industrial-era rituals lay in their fluidity. Baseball games grafted tribal war chants onto corporate leisure, their seventh-inning stretches offering communal catharsis. The synchronized lunch break, where entire factories downed tools at the whistle, created secular sacraments of sandwiches and thermoses. When telephone operators developed coded rings to signal community news on party lines, they were unknowingly recreating village drum circles with copper wires. These adaptations reveal a profound truth. Rituals don't die, they migrate. The same human need that once gathered farmers around solstice bonfires now draws office workers to water cooler gossip sessions. What factories and tenements taught us is that modernity didn't erase our hunger for connection. It just forced us to find sacredness in the seams of everyday life. The clatter of looms may have silenced village fiddlers, but in their place arose the hum of subway cars carrying 1,000 strangers, all swaying together to the same invisible rhythm. A painted mandala glows under candlelight as a Tibetan monk meticulously places colored sand grain by grain, only to sweep it all away upon completion. To Carl Jung, this wasn't just religious art, it was a living blueprint of the human mind. The Swiss psychiatrist believed rituals like these were echoes of something far older and deeper than culture. The collective unconscious, a hidden layer of the psyche where archetypes, universal symbols, and patterns swirl beneath our individual thoughts. Imagine these archetypes as psychic fingerprints pressed into humanity's DNA over millennia. The hero's journey, the wise old man, the shadow self. These aren't just literary tropes but primal templates that rituals bring to life, whether in a Navajo initiation ceremony or a child's first birthday party. Jung's theories took root during his own crisis. After breaking with Freud, he plunged into what he called his confrontation with the unconscious, recording vivid dreams and visions that mirrored ancient myths he'd never studied. A recurring figure emerged: Fileman, a winged sage who resembled Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom. This wasn't coincidence, Jung argued, but proof that the psyche speaks in symbols transcending time and geography. When indigenous shamans describe serpent spirits or medieval alchemists draw Ouroboros dragons eating their tails, they're channeling the same archetypal language. Rituals then become the grammar of this language-structured ways to commune with forces too vast for ordinary words. Modern science offers intriguing support. Neuroscientists studying brain scans during rituals note heightened activity in the limbic system, our emotional core, alongside quieted prefrontal regions responsible for critical thinking. This cocktail emotional intensity paired with reduced skepticism creates fertile ground for archetypal experiences. A soldier kneeling before a flag, a bride walking down the aisle, even fans swaying at a concert. All may briefly touch that collective layer where personal identity dissolves into something older and more universal. The power of archetypes explains why certain ritual elements reappear globally despite no cultural contact. Water purification appears in Hindu Ganga dips, Christian baptisms, and Japanese misogi waterfall austerities. Circular dances surface in Sufi whirling, Native American sun ceremonies, and Baltic folk traditions. Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, and meaningful coincidences revealing deeper connections. When a therapist today uses sand play therapy, where clients arrange miniature figures to access subconscious material, they're employing the same principle. Rituals bypass the intellect to speak directly to the symbolic mind. Yet Jung's theories aren't without controversy. Critics argue they risk reducing diverse traditions to psychological clichés, ignoring their unique historical context. A Balinese tooth-filing ceremony isn't just about the shadow archetype. It's a rite of passage with specific social functions. Others note that Jung's archetypes sometimes reflect his era's biases, like the gendered anima and animus concepts. Still, his core insight remains potent, that rituals work because they resonate with something in us that predates logic, something that recognizes the hero in a graduation gown or the sacred marriage in a corporate merger. Perhaps the most compelling evidence lies in modern secular rituals. Why do people light candles after tragedies, creating spontaneous shrines? Why do athletes develop pre-game routines as elaborate as any religious liturgy? These behaviors suggest that even without formal myths, humans instinctively create rituals to navigate life's thresholds. Jung might say we're hardwired to need them, that when we stand silent during a memorial or blow out birthday candles with closed eyes, we're not just following tradition. We're dipping our cups into the same deep well that quenched our ancestors' thirst for meaning, drinking from waters that still flow beneath the surface of our busy, modern lives. The stadium erupts as a soccer player kisses his wrist before taking a penalty kick, a private ritual suddenly magnified on jumbotrons worldwide. This isn't just superstition, it's modern myth-making in real time. Athletes from Serena Williams' precise bounce routine before serves to LeBron James' chalk toss have turned pre-game rituals into performance art, blending personal talismans with mass entertainment. Psychologists call it goal-directed behavior, but fans understand it as something deeper, a way to conjure control in high-stakes moments where skill alone isn't enough. The irony: these highly televised personal rituals become shared experiences, with kids in backyards mimicking their heroes' gestures, unknowingly continuing chains of meaning that stretch from ancient Olympians anointing themselves with olive oil to today's NBA stars tapping their chests twice before free throws. Social media has birthed its own ritual language, TikTok's manifestation routines, or where users arrange crystals, light candles, and recite affirmations, might seem like New Age trends, but they mirror Babylonian tablet incantations updated for the attention economy. The viral "get ready with me" trend transforms makeup application into ceremonial preparation, each swipe of blush or spritz of perfume carrying the weight of ancestral beautification rites. Even the simple act of tagging friends under a full moon post echoes the communal bonfires where villages once gathered to harness lunar energy. These digital rituals fulfill the same ancient needs, creating order, seeking protection, fostering belonging, just through smartphone screens instead of sacred fires. Fandoms have become the new mystery cults. K-pop fans organize synchronized streaming parties to break records, their collective effort mirroring harvest dances meant to ensure communal prosperity. Comic-Con cosplayers don't just wear costumes, they undergo transformations, spending hours becoming Wonder Woman or Spider-Man in acts that blur the line between play and pilgrimage. The Supernatural TV show's fans took this further, adopting the characters' warding symbols as real-life tattoos, turning fiction into functional spirituality. These aren't passive consumers but active participants in myth-building, proving Joseph Campbell's observation that modern society hasn't lost its need for heroes, it's just found them on streaming platforms instead of mountaintops. Workplace rituals reveal how deeply these patterns run in secular spaces. The Japanese salaryman's precise morning calisthenics broadcast nationwide. The Silicon Valley stand-up meeting with its obligatory coffee cup props, even the casual Friday dress code, all serve as secular rites of passage marking transitions between professional and personal identities. Google's TGIF meetings once featured a ritualistic queue and a session where employees could challenge executives, a corporate version of the ancient Greek agora where citizens questioned leaders. When these rituals break down, like when remote work erased water cooler chats, workers report feeling unmoored, proving that even the most mundane routines anchor us in ways we barely recognize until they're gone. The pandemic unexpectedly became a crucible for new rituals. Italians singing from balconies transformed isolation into communal catharsis, reviving the medieval tradition of plague songs. Zoom happy hours with mandatory virtual backgrounds functioned like digital purification rites, creating sacred spaces separate from messy home realities. Even something as simple as the elbow bump replaced handshakes with a gesture that felt both hygienic and ceremonious. These improvisations reveal rituals' true purpose, not to preserve tradition, but to help humans navigate uncertainty together. When old forms collapse, we instinctively invent new ones, proving that ritual making isn't a cultural luxury but a survival skill wired into our species. Why does this urge persist in our hyperrational age? Neuroscience offers clues. MRI scans show group rituals synchronize brain activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, the region governing social connection. Dopamine spikes when expectations are met, whether it's a baseball player's lucky socks working or a birthday going exactly as planned. But deeper than biology lies something more profound. In a world where algorithms dictate our choices and crises unfold globally yet impersonally, rituals remain the last domains where humans assert agency through symbolic action. That TikTok teen arranging crystals may not believe they'll magically attract wealth, but the act itself declares that some things, even small patterned gestures, can still belong entirely to us. The fluorescent lights hum overhead as employees in identical polo shirts gather in a conference room, arms linked, reciting the company pledge in unison. This isn't a cult initiation, it's a Tuesday morning at a major retail chain. Corporate rituals from Salesforce's Ohana culture to Zappos' culture book have become the secular sacraments of modern business, designed to transform strangers into tribes. But beneath the branded water bottles and mandatory trust falls lies a provocative question. Can rituals be manufactured, or do they need organic roots to hold meaning? Take the Japanese practice of aseichi, morning meetings where teams chant slogans and stretch together. Originally rooted in factory efficiency, these rituals now appear in Silicon Valley startups with ping-pong tables replacing assembly lines. The irony is palpable. Where once workers synchronized movements to maximize productivity, today's tech employees perform similar routines to simulate camaraderie they rarely have time to cultivate naturally. Anthropologists note a key difference. Traditional rituals emerge from shared struggle, while corporate versions often feel parachuted in by HR departments. When Disney trains cast members to point with 2 fingers instead of 1, a gesture borrowed from Japanese etiquette to appear more polite, it's not culture building, it's cultural cosplay. Yet some rituals organically mutate into something more profound. The Friday demo at GitHub began as a simple show and tell for coders. Now it's a sacred space where junior developers gain status by presenting side projects, complete with inside jokes and ceremonial roasting. Similarly, Starbucks green apron cards, handwritten notes of appreciation between baristas started as a morale booster, but became a genuine language of care in high-turnover environments. These examples reveal a truth. Rituals gain authenticity not from their origin, but from the emotional stakes participants invest in them. A gold watch for decades of service feels hollow if the company laid off colleagues the week prior. Branding rituals walk an even tighter tightrope. Apple's product launches, with their dramatic reveals and exacting choreography, mimic religious tent revivals, complete with acolytes, employees gasping on cue. Nike's shoe drop culture turns limited edition sneaker releases into pilgrimage events, where lining up overnight becomes a badge of belonging. The genius here is alchemy, converting consumerism into community. But the line between ritual and manipulation blurs when companies monetize these bonds. Peloton's leaderboard rankings tap into primal drives for status and achievement, turning exercise into a game where participants pay for the privilege of competition. The darkest rituals emerge in toxic workplaces. WeWork's "Thank God It's Monday" rallies and mandatory alcohol-fueled retreats weaponized camaraderie, pressuring employees to equate suffering with loyalty. Amazon's Anytime feedback tool, ostensibly for peer recognition, became a ritualized surveillance system where workers covertly undermined each other. These aren't cultures, they's cults minus the ideology, where rituals enforce conformity rather than foster genuine connection. Perhaps the most revealing corporate rituals are those employees create despite management. The bartender's shift drink after closing, the nurse's "bad luck never say quiet" superstition in ERs, the teacher's lounge gripe sessions. These unofficial rites serve the same purpose as ancient harvest festivals, marking survival, validating exhaustion, and bonding through shared absurdity. When IBM tried replacing these organic traditions with structured innovation jams, participation flopped. The lesson: you can't script authenticity. As remote work dissolves physical offices, digital rituals are struggling to fill the void. Slack emoji reactions replace high fives. Virtual happy hours limp along with forced laughter. Yet some adaptations show promise. GitLab's coffee chats algorithmically pair distant colleagues for video calls, creating accidental intimacy. The future may lie in hybrid rituals like Microsoft's productivity hours, where on-site and remote teams synchronize focus time across time zones, blending structure with flexibility. Corporate rituals ultimately hold up a mirror to our deepest needs: to belong, to be seen, to make meaning from spreadsheet cells and quarterly reports. The test isn't whether they're real traditions, but whether they leave participants feeling more human or just more branded. When a warehouse worker's Employee of the Month plaque gathers dust in a drawer, but she keeps her team's inside joke meme printed and taped to her locker, the answer becomes clear: rituals work when they're owned, not issued. Midnight strikes in Tokyo, and millions of fingers tap screens simultaneously, not for notifications, but to summon virtual companions in a mobile game's timed event. Meanwhile, on Twitch, a sea of identical emotes floods the chat as viewers chant inside jokes only initiates understand. These aren't just online pastimes. They're the birth cries of digital age rituals where ancient human impulses, belonging, transcendence, shared purpose find expression in ones and zeros. Take the global phenomenon of Among Us. What began as a simple multiplayer game evolved into ritualized play, with communities developing unspoken rules like no skipping medbay scan or dramatic emergency meeting pauses. These conventions mirror the strict protocols of Japanese tea ceremonies, arbitrary at first glance, but laden with meaning for those steeped in the culture. The game's eject animation, where players are flung into space, became a moment of collective catharsis, complete with improvised farewells akin to funeral rites. When streamers started reacting to these ejections with exaggerated grief, they weren't just entertaining, they were codifying a new form of digital storytelling where randomness transforms into narrative through shared performance. Memes operate as modern-day folklore, their life cycles following surprisingly ritualistic patterns. A viral image like "distracted boyfriend" doesn't just spread, it undergoes initiation, niche subreddits, elevation, mainstream adoption, and eventual retirement. Noya meme. Calm archives, mirroring the hero's journey found in indigenous oral traditions. The act of remixing a template becomes participatory myth-making, where each iteration adds to a collective tapestry. Deep in Facebook groups, users engage in meme seances, reviving dead formats with new captions like shamans summoning ancestral spirits. Even the predictable comment chains "nobody" function as call and response chants, creating rhythm in the chaos. Live streaming has birthed its own liturgical calendar. Twitch's subathons, where creators marathon stream until donations stop, echo Inuit blanket toss rituals. Both are communal efforts to elevate individuals through collective support. The hypers that erupt when goals are met, spammed emotes, TTS donations reading absurd messages aren't mere celebration. They're patterned emotional releases similar to Pentecostals speaking in tongues or Sufi whirling. During charity streams like Games Done Quick, viewers don't just donate, they perform, timing contributions to trigger specific on-screen reactions during speedruns, turning philanthropy into interactive theater. Digital pilgrimages redefined sacred geography. When Minecraft players journeyed en masse to the game's coordinate, 00, following a popular YouTuber's death, their pixelated flowers and signs created a spontaneous memorial echoing the roadside shrines of Thailand. Animal Crossing's virtual cherry blossom festivals became hubs for cultural exchange, with players from polar climates experiencing Hanami flower viewing for the first time through meticulously crafted in-game picnics. These spaces satisfy an age-old craving to mark time and loss in ways that transcend physical limitations, much like Neolithic communities arranged standing stones to track solstices. The parallels run deeper than surface comparisons. Ancient rituals often served three functions: community binding, anxiety relief, and meaning making, precisely what digital rituals achieve today. Discord servers develop elaborate onboarding processes, role assignments, rule quizzes that mirror tribal initiation rites. Asthma streams, with their whispered affirmations and simulated personal attention, fulfill the same soothing role as lullabies or monastic chant. Even the ubiquitous F in chat, originally a Call of Duty reference, has morphed into a genuine gesture of digital mourning, a way to collectively acknowledge loss when physical presence isn't possible. Yet crucial differences emerge. Where traditional rituals demand physical co-presence, digital ones thrive on asynchronous participation. A Reddit thread about a TV show finale gathers reactions across time zones, creating a mosaic of perspectives rather than a unified moment. Ancient rites derived power from scarcity, rare herbs, restricted knowledge, while internet rituals gain strength from abundance, endless remixes, infinite replication. Most strikingly, offline rituals typically reinforce existing hierarchies, whereas online communities often subvert them. Consider how K-pop fans coordinated to sabotage a political rally by reserving tickets they never used, turning a ticketing platform's mechanics into a tool for collective action. The test of these new rituals lies in their staying power. Will rickrolling persist like the maypole dance, surviving centuries through sheer stubborn whimsy? Can a TikTok trend ever carry the weight of a Passover Seder? Early signs suggest yes. When Instagram servers crashed in 2021, users flooded Twitter with "Instagram down" memes, not in panic but in playful solidarity, demonstrating how quickly digital natives ritualize disruption. The rituals that endure will likely be those honoring timeless human needs for connection, for play, for ways to say, "We were here," in a universe that often forgets. What ancient traditions and Twitch chats share isn't just form but function. Both are attempts to carve meaning from chaos, to whisper, "I matter," into the void and hear echoes reply. The mediums change. Cave paintings become reaction gifs. Drum circles morph into Discord voice channels, but the heartbeat remains. After all, when a gamer pauses to type "GG" after a match, they're performing the same essential ritual as a samurai bowing to his opponent, acknowledging that beyond competition lies something deeper, the shared dance of being human. A clenched fist pounds a locker before the big game. A student taps their pencil 3 times before an exam. A bride steps left foot first into the wedding venue. These tiny acts might seem trivial, but brain scans reveal they're anything but. Neuroscience has uncovered something remarkable. Rituals aren't just cultural fluff, they're psychological power tools wired into our biology. When researchers at Harvard monitored participants performing personal rituals before high-pressure tasks, they found cortisol levels dropped by nearly 20% compared to control groups. That pre-game fist bump or lucky charm isn't just comforting, it's chemically dialing down stress hormones like a biological mute button. The magic lies in predictability. Functional MRI studies show ritualistic behaviors activate the basal ganglia, the brain's autopilot center responsible for habitual actions. This shifts cognitive load away from the prefrontal cortex, our overthinking headquarters. It's why free throw routines help basketball players tune out roaring crowds. The familiar sequence creates a neural safe zone. Anthropologist Dimitris Xygalotas demonstrated this by tracking firewalkers in Greece. Those who performed pre-walk rituals reported less pain and showed steadier heart rates, even though their feet faced identical scorching coals. The rituals didn't change the physical reality, they rewired perception, turning agony into a manageable challenge. Social rituals work even deeper magic. When anthropologists analyzed synchronized activities, from military drills to gospel choirs, they discovered something extraordinary: participants' breathing and heart rates unconsciously aligned. This physiological synchrony triggers oxytocin release, the same bonding hormone that floods new mothers' brains. That explains why companies with strong ritual cultures report higher teamwork metrics, and why fraternity hazing's problematic as they create fierce loyalty. Shared discomfort becomes social glue at a hormonal level. Even simple actions like communal meals or weekly meetings, when ritualized, strengthen trust more effectively than mission statements ever could. Rituals also hack memory systems. UCLA psychologists found students who developed pre-study rituals like lighting a specific candle or arranging desks identically retained information 23% better than peers. The repeated context cues create state-dependent learning, where the brain forms stronger recall pathways. This explains why religious rituals using incense or chanting enhance spiritual experiences. The sensory triggers become memory bookmarks, making abstract concepts feel viscerally real. The placebo effect plays a surprising role. When researchers gave participants sugar pills labeled ritual strength enhancers, those who performed accompanying rituals like shaking the bottle clockwise reported greater pain tolerance and focus than those who just took the pills. The rituals weren't just window dressing, they amplified belief's power, turning expectations into self-fulfilling prophecies. This explains everything from shamanic healing ceremonies to athlete superstitions. The brain rewards prescribed sequences with dopamine hits, making us feel in control even when outcomes are uncertain. Perhaps most fascinating is how rituals reshape time perception. Neurological studies of Catholic monks reciting the Liturgy of the Hours, prayers at fixed intervals, show their brainwaves develop temporal patterns aligning with the ritual cycle. This neurotemporal scaffolding helps explain why cultures with strong ritual calendars, from Jewish Shabbat to Japanese tea ceremonies, report lower anxiety about mortality. The rituals create rhythmic anchors in life's chaos. Modern applications are already emerging. Hospitals now use procedure bundles, ritualized checklists for surgeons, that reduce errors more effectively than training alone. Therapists prescribe personalized rituals for grief management, like planting annual memorial trees. Even astronauts on the ISS perform pre-launch rituals, not because NASA believes in magic, but because science confirms these acts optimize human performance under extreme stress. The takeaway isn't that rituals are mystical, it's that they're metabolic. They don't just symbolize change, they engineer it at a cellular level, turning arbitrary actions into neural alchemy. Whether it's a CEO's power pose before a board meeting or a child's bedtime story routine, these patterned behaviors are our species' ancient toolkit for taming chaos, one deliberate, repeated gesture at a time. Imagine stepping into a virtual temple where your digital avatar lights incense alongside fellow worshippers from 6 continents, the scent simulated by haptic feedback gloves as an AI monk chants in perfect Sanskrit. This isn't science fiction, it's the bleeding edge of ritual evolution, where ancient practices collide with tomorrow's tech. Already, apps like Alta VR let users build sacred spaces in mixed reality, blending holographic mandalas with their living room decor. But the real revolution lies deeper. Blockchain is enabling smart rituals, where Ethereum-based contracts automatically release donations to charities when certain meditative milestones are hit. In Seoul, Buddhist temples now offer Robot Dharma, where android assistants recite sutras and remind visitors to breathe, not replacing monks but extending their reach into digital natives' lives. The rise of AI spiritual advisors hints at how rituals may personalize. ChatGPT's AI priest experiment offered confessionals and sermon suggestions, while Japan's Pepper robot performs Shinto blessings at weddings. Critics call this sacrilegious, but history suggests otherwise. When Gutenberg's press made personal prayer books possible, it sparked similar outrage, yet ultimately deepened individual faith. The next frontier, biometric rituals. Picture a smartwatch that vibrates during your morning jog when your heart rate syncs with circadian rhythms, turning exercise into a somatic prayer. Or neural interfaces translating brainwaves into visual mantras, helping ADHD sufferers achieve laser focus through digital rosaries. Globalization isn't erasing cultural rituals, it's creating hybrid forms. Mexican Dia de Muertos now features photorealistic QR codes on altars, linking to videos of departed loved ones. Norwegian Koselig coziness rituals merge with Japanese forest bathing in urban, slow-living movements, their crossover spawning new wellness liturgies. Even food rituals are transforming. Lab-grown cultured meat poses challenges for halal and kosher certification, leading to fascinating debates. Can a burger be blessed if no animal was slaughtered? Muslim bioethicists are already prototyping stem cell zabiha protocols. The darkest question concerns rituals' role in an age of deepfakes. If an AI can generate a flawless simulation of your deceased grandmother's voice for ancestral veneration, does it honor memory or distort it? Startups like Here After AI let people create interactive avatars of themselves for posthumous interactions, a modern twist on Egyptian tomb inscriptions meant to sustain the dead. Psychologists warn these grief tech rituals risk trapping users in denial, while proponents argue they simply update timeless mourning practices for the digital afterlife. Yet some futurists believe the most radical shifts will come from climate chaos. As rising seas claim traditional pilgrimage sites, virtual Hajj journeys may become necessities rather than novelties. Indigenous tribes from the Marshall Islands are already working with 3D artists to preserve submerged sacred sites as augmented reality experiences. Meanwhile, eco-rituals are emerging like coral reef funerals where cremated remains nurture marine ecosystems, or Swedish death composting ceremonies that turn bodies into soil under ceremonial groves. The ultimate test for future rituals won't be technological sophistication but emotional authenticity. When Second Life hosted virtual Tibetan sand mandala ceremonies during the pandemic, participants reported unexpected tears watching the intricate destruction of pixels they'd helped place. That's the alchemy rituals must preserve, the transformation of ordinary actions into vessels for transcendent meaning, whether performed with a mouse click or a monk's bell. The mediums will change, but the human hunger they feed for connection, for continuity, for moments that whisper, "This matters," remains eternal. Rituals are the invisible threads stitching together the tapestry of human existence, weaving through time and culture with quiet persistence. From the first ochre-streaked cave walls to the glowing smartphone screens of today, they've been our constant companions, tools for making sense of chaos, for marking what matters, for whispering to something greater than ourselves. Think of the last time you blew out birthday candles or stood silently during a moment of remembrance. In those small acts, you weren't just following tradition. You were adding your voice to a chorus that spans millennia, a chorus that says, "This moment deserves to be set apart." What makes rituals so enduring isn't their pomp or spectacle, but their ability to hold contradictions in perfect balance. They root us in the past while propelling us forward, like a tree drawing nourishment from ancient soil while reaching for the sky. A Japanese tea master performing centuries-old movements in a Tokyo high-rise, a gamer executing their pre-match routine before a virtual battle. Both are participating in the same fundamental human drama. Rituals give shape to our longing for continuity in a world of constant change, offering handrails where the path gets steep. But here's the beautiful paradox: rituals are both deeply personal and profoundly communal. When a nurse washes their hands with methodical care before surgery, they're honoring a scientific protocol. Yet the ritualistic precision transforms a clinical act into a sacred vow. Across the globe, a mother might hum the same lullaby her grandmother sang, her voice bridging generations in a private ceremony of love and survival. These moments remind us that rituals aren't relics locked in museums. They're living, breathing practices that adapt to our needs, whether we're mourning a loss, celebrating a triumph, or simply steeling ourselves for another day. The rituals we choose to carry forward or invent anew tell a story about who we are and who we aspire to be. A climate activist planting trees in deforested land is performing a ritual of hope, just as surely as medieval monks illuminated manuscripts to preserve knowledge. A team of engineers conducting a pre-launch checklist channels the same focused intention as Babylonian astrologers charting the heavens. The forms evolve, but the essence remains. Rituals are how we declare that some things transcend the mundane, that some acts deserve reverence, repetition, and care. So as the world spins faster, as traditions collide and technologies reshape how we connect, the question isn't whether rituals will survive, it's which ones will nurture, which ones will reshape, and which ones will dare to create. Will you revive an old family custom buried by time? Will you invent a new ritual to mark the milestones of our digital age? The power lies in your hands, just as it did for the ancestors who lit the first fires, sang the first songs, and taught us that even the smallest repeated act can become a compass for the soul. The conversation continues below. Share the rituals that anchor your life, and let's keep this ancient, endless dance alive